Hello everybody, this is VDiffuser. Welcome back to Let's Play Great Ace Attorney 2. Last cross-examination in our first trial. Let's go. What exactly were they arguing about? About what happened in that restaurant 9 months ago. That's what. The student girl was laying under the Englishwoman for killing her beloved mentor, Dr. Wilson. Yes, John H. Wilson. A professor of medicine, invited here from England by Professor Mikatoba, no less. Right, but the Englishwoman just jeered. The case was to be heard by the British Consular Court in Shanghai. However, there's little doubt she would simply have been acquitted and sent back to her homeland a free woman. It was eating that student girl up inside. You could see it. I really felt for her. I can't stand here and listen to this tripe. Ray, young girl, you stand accused here. You can't just blurt out whenever you feel like it. No, you can't. Sorry, but I'm in the middle of some very important testimony here. Just keep quiet and listen. Awful man is making all of this up. You have to make them listen. Return to the dock at once and embody some. We are in the middle of a cross-examination.
Hold it!
Your Excellency, please, I implore you. The journalist is clearly not a trustworthy witness. Exactly. He's a filthy, rotten, black-hearted, bigoted, dirty, great, peeping Tom. Whoa, take it easy there. Please, I really think the court should hear what the defendant has to say. Your Excellency, I see no need whatsoever to entertain the accused remarks. I will grant the request of the defense. But, Your Excellency! This is likely to be the final cross-examination of these proceedings. As such, I believe it would be ill-advised to stifle the defendant's obvious concerns. So, whilst recognizing this contravenes earlier protocol, I hereby call upon the defendant to speak. Oh. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. It was nothing to do with Dr. Wilson. We were discussing stolen poison.
Hold it!
The stolen poison that killed the victim, you mean? I suspected her of being the one to steal it. I mean, just think about how she killed Dr. Wilson. That's true. Additionally, Miss Brett certainly had knowledge of the new poison. But surely it would be no easy task to steal a highly secret toxin being developed for the government. Indeed, all visitors to the laboratory are thoroughly searched when they leave. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be very difficult. That's true. I pestered Professor Mikatoba until he agreed to show me the poison when I visited his laboratory. As I left, I was searched from top to tail. Miss Brett rather bluntly revealed the existence of the toxin we'd been developing, you see. And since Sosuke-san expressed such an interest in it, I felt unable to refuse. Obviously, I gave nothing away, other than the fact it was an extremely potent substance. I'm very ashamed of myself. It's just that I've had a singularly terrible experience with a deadly poison. I wanted to look at my old enemy in the eye! Surely you can understand that! To find out if my suspicions were true, I confronted Miss Brett about the poison. I told her if there was to be an incident involving it somehow, it wouldn't just be the university. The military would be dragged into it. The whole government, even. It would be a complete disaster. And how did Miss Brett respond to your concerns? She just curled those beautiful lips of hers and said she didn't know the first thing about it. In English, actually. Ah, yes, Mini-Memo-san. One small question, if you don't mind. I do mind. Can't you see I'm busy? Clearly you were outside the beach hut listening in whilst the defendant and Miss Brett were conversing. Presumably, then, it was you who wrote this article about what you heard. Exclusive, deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research University. The story was published in this morning's edition of Shoyu News. The details are too accurate for it to have been written by anybody else. Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, look at this. The entire article is almost what I said to Miss Brett, word for word. Well, Mini-Memo-san. As a journo, and as a citizen of a free country, I have to reveal my sources. It's a founding principle of Mini-Memoism. Father's clearly right about this. That reporter did write that article, and he based it on what he overheard from outside the hut. The details of the poison article, yep, we know. By eavesdropping. Fucking peeping Tom. So that's what it was all about. You were trying to cover up the fact you were listening in. That's why you came up with that stinking story about me arguing with her. Shut up! My stories never stink. Look, whatever you say, little girl, it doesn't alter the facts. Your Excellency, there's something I want to say, and I want to go on record. Very well, you may amend your formal testimony. The point is, if you poison someone, there'd be no reason then to go and stab the person as well. Oh, really? Guess what?
Objection!
Well, I can think of one reason. What? What? But before I explain, I'd like you to confirm something for the court. Did you glean all that information for this newspaper article that you overheard outside the hut? Of course he did! There can be no question of that! After all, when we were all in that laboratory together, all we were told was that it was a terrible toxin. And there is one more important fact to consider. According to the witness, Membani-san's verbal attack against the victim began as soon as she entered the hut. In other words, it would have been impossible for her to have slipped the poison into Miss Brett's drink.
Objection!
Where are you going with this, counsel? Mini-Memo-san has made it quite clear he observed every single thing that happened in that beach hut. If the defendant had somehow found an opportunity, this man would have seen it. Hey! Which means Miss Brett couldn't have imbibed the poison while the defendant was present. In fact, it must have been administered to her before Membani-san entered the hut. Yes, very articulately put. When I walked into the hut, I immediately started to press Miss Brett about the poison. At which point, Mini-Memo-san overheard some worrying information. Worrying information? What worrying information? The information which he subsequently included in his newspaper article, namely, that the poison was being developed in strict secrecy and that it couldn't be readily obtained. Absolutely. In fact, that's quite an understatement. The only possible place it could come from is my lab. And furthermore, anyone afflicted by the poison would exhibit telltale signs in death. The extreme constriction of the pupils. Yes, it's quite stark when you see it. There are other poisons that show similar symptoms, but not among new substances that are undetectable. In other words, it would be clear that the victim's life had been ended by the use of this particular poison, which would reduce the number of suspects to only a handful of people. Ah! Everyone in my laboratory is aware of the unique properties of the toxin we've been developing. None of them would be foolish enough to attempt to use it for some nefarious deed. Membani-san being no exception. Therefore, we can conclude that whoever administered the unique poison to the victim was a layperson unaware of its telltale properties. In other words, someone like you writing many memo. It was you who stole the poison from the laboratory that day, and it was you who administered it to the unwitting victim. But you quickly realized it was a terrible mistake, because the poison caused such unusual symptoms and was so traceable. As you listened in from the far side of the beach hut's thin walls, you learned of these facts. But you'd already given the victim the poison at that point. It was too late. So you hatched a plan to disguise your mistake. A plan that involved stabbing the victim in the back through that read screen.
Attention!
But what good could that possibly do? Isn't it obvious, Consul? The plan was to kill Miss Brett before the poison could take effect. Hey! Once in the blood, the poison causes the onset of pupil constriction. But he had hoped to precipitate the victim's death before that happened, hadn't he? Exactly. Because without any revealing signs of the new secret's poison's use, no one would ever have suspected. This is extraordinary. Yes, the effect of the poison meant it would be too easily identified, so the killer had to mask its use, which he attempted to do by plunging a knife in the middle of the victim's back. Order! The argument presented is sound. The court is satisfied that it warrants consideration. Does the prosecution have a counter-argument it wishes to put forward? Well, there are a number of, yes, I counter completely.
Objection!
The prosecution's evasive response clearly shows, in much the same way as he nurtures the remnants of his top-knot, he is clinging to lost hope. Whoa, lost hope! All day. You pathetic, useless, fallen samurai. Who are you calling fallen? My burgeoning growth is on the right. I don't need a counter-argument. What are you talking about? It should be blatantly obvious. I stole the poison, you say. Gave it to the victim, you say. Stabbed her, you say. Lots of fine theories. I don't need a counter-argument because you don't have an argument yourself. Where's your evidence? Yeah, you make it all sound so plausible, don't you? Without evidence, it means nothing. Whereas I base my news on facts. What do you mean? Explain yourself. I mean what the professor said earlier in this trial. It's all here in my many memos. Every word, every slip of the tongue, all noted. That's what the Show You News is famous for. It's the power of the printed word. But surely it would be no easy task to steal a highly... Yeah, because they got searched. But we know where he could hide it. How's that thing? Blown the story wide open? See, I, writing a mini memo, a mere reporter from the Show You News, could possibly have stolen that poison from the professor's laboratory. Yeah, you could have, and I know how. You have a friggin' fountain pen. I know how. As you've identified, the poison itself is the definitive evidence we need. Because whoever stole it from the laboratory that day is the true culprit here. What's your point, you annoyingly handsome country bumpkin? My point is this. There is one way that you, Manny Memo-san, could have stolen the poison that day. I've heard enough verbal conjecture now, thank you. What the court must be shown is evidence. Alrighty, the evidence that seals your doom.
Take that!
The proof, Your Excellency, is this fountain pen. A fountain pen? How can that possibly be irrelevant? These magical pens somehow seem to have enough ink to write many thousands of kanji characters. I believe they arrived in our country for the first time some 15 years ago now. Ah, I swear by a weasel hair, calligraphy brush, and nothing else. These newfangled pens are merely a fad. Well, as a forward-thinking man of words, obviously I love my fountain pen. Sucker, a soup cone of sumptuous ink, and one's work is awash with words in the blink of an eye. That's right. Fountain pens have a small reservoir in the barrel, into which ink is sucked up through the nib of the pen in order to write with later. What is all this taking of sucking up ink? Aye! And just as it's possible to suck up ink into the reservoir, it's also possible to eject it through the nib again, of course. My word, can this really be? Well, Many Memo-san. When you saw the deadly poison before your eyes in the laboratory that day, you used your fountain pen, your very lifeblood, to steal some of it, didn't you? By siphoning the poison up through the nib and into the pen's reservoir. Ah!
Objection!
More absurdity! This never happened! True, we've heard that there were procedures in place to prevent thefts like this from the laboratory. But would anyone have thought to have looked inside a fountain pen of all places? No, I'm a little ashamed to say that for fear of offending our guests, such a detailed search would not have been conducted. Well, this is quite startling, I must say. I remind the court this pen was found in the clutches of the victim when she died. In other words, it was dropped in the scene by Many Memo-san. So the crucial question is, when exactly was the pen dropped? Are you suggesting the natural conclusion is that in your haste to act while the victim was distracted for a moment, you dropped the pen after you emptied the poison from it into her glass?
Objection!
There could be any number of alternative explanations. For example, the witness could have been using this pen to write down details of his conversation with the victim. And when shocked by one of her outrageous answers, the pen fell from his quivering hand.
Objection!
No, that can't be. If it was, how do you explain why the pen was devoid of ink? What? As you can see for yourself if you examine the evidence, there would appear to be no ink present in the reservoir. What newspaper reporter goes to interview someone with no ink on his pen? No, the pen was dropped after the poison that filled its reservoir had been emptied into the victim's glass. Witness, what do you have to say in your defense? So this is how our modern justice system works, is it? So what if the ink in my pen runs dry? So what if my pencil snaps? I can always claw my way back in the game. I have plenty in reserve. Ah! You claim I sucked the poison up in my pen. That's wild speculation, nothing more. You thought you could bring down a fine upstanding citizen with a trick like that? Think again! It looks as though it's going to take one final decisive blow to finish this. As I see it, the situation is now very simple. It rests upon whether or not this witness did indeed steal it or not. And therefore, it all depends on whether or not the defense can prove he did it. Oh, we can prove that.
Objection!
Many Memo-san, this is how our modern justice system works. What? In the courtroom, evidence is everything. Something you would do well to remember. Because we are well past the point of speculation in this stage, I assure you. You know, he kind of looks like Kamoshida from Persona 5, our witness. And all the better that he's the first to go down. Alright. Chemical reagent.
Take that!
What is that bottle? This bottle contains a unique chemical reagent that can identify the poison in question. Hey! Yes, that poison is an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids developed by my colleague and I. It would be impossible to detect traces of it by any other method. Or, from another perspective, simply with this chemical reagent, anybody at all could check for traces of the poison. A reagent? What? 1 drop of the contents of this bottle on the tip of your fountain pen, Mini-Memo-san, is all it will take to solve this case beyond all reasonable doubt. No, you can't. I won't. Your crimes are bad enough, but at least know when to admit defeat. Your Excellency, the defense requests permission to carry out the test on the fountain pen at once. This isn't my fault. The Empire drove me to this, trying to hold its head high as a civilization, but bowing its head to every foreign power. Did I do it right? That was a Susato takedown, wasn't it? Not quite. That was a Ryotaro takedown. The instant the first drop of the reagent touched the nib of the fountain pen, it was clear to everyone present when I saw it there in the lab. Poison. The devil got hold of me and I decided to do it on a whim. I excused myself and emptied all the ink down the sink in the bathroom, washing the reservoir out completely. And then you waited for an opportunity to suck up some of the poison, didn't you? Into your fountain pen. Yeah, that's right. Answer me one thing, Mini-Memo-san. Why did you steal it? For what purpose? Isn't it obvious? To find out what it was made of and expose it in an article. I mean, it was a secret project after all. Too juicy for a journo like me to pass up. And then why did the Englishwoman end up dead? I went into their hut intending to quiz her on her situation, that's all. As a reporter. A known killer, enjoying full freedom. Leaving the country. I told her what I thought about it. And she just laughed in my face. Oh, what's this? A Far Eastern caveman purporting to practice journalism. Really, you must learn the difference between reporting and listening at doorways. You ignorant plebeian. What did you call me? This country with its pretensions to a justice system, to a free press, it's really very depressing. You see our superior ways in the West, yet you lack the mental capacity to emulate them. Get out of here, you oaf. Get out and crawl back into the cave you came from. That's when I remembered about the deadly poison I happened to have in my pen at the time. What a terrible tale. In my head, I knew I should just get out of there as quickly as possible, but I couldn't. I couldn't let her get away with what she'd done, when she clearly had no remorse at all. I suppose it was my journo spirit, getting all fired up. I'd like to ask you something. Yes? You often talk about justice. But surely as a journalist, you could have used other means to deliver the justice you sought. There's no justice in the press. Sorry? After that trial 9 months ago, I kept digging and digging to find out what happened in that courtroom. And finally, I discovered the truth. It was a cover-up, that's what it was. A cover-up? What do you mean? I would remind you of your position, witness. Be careful what you say. Oh, come on. Doesn't it strike you as strange? We're suddenly not allowed to convict a foreign national. Consular jurisdiction could never come into it. And yet that puffed-up Englishwoman was going to sail away into the sunset a free woman. The only possible explanation is that behind the scenes, there's some deal that's gone down between Britain and Japan. What sort of deal? I've done my research, dug up all the dirt. It was all ready to be published. But you know what happened? The editor tore the article up. He came under pressure from the government. You mean? If our government is going to let criminals walk free, if they're gonna crush the free press, then what choice do I have but to see that justice is done myself? Let's not forget, Mini-Memo-san, that you committed murder yourself, and you tried to lay the blame at the defendant's door. I'm sorry. You're no better than Giselle Brett. What? The truth is, you've no right to talk about justice at all. I suppose. It would appear that we have reached a conclusion in this trial at last. Counsel for the defense, Ritaro Naruhodo. Oh, yes. Sorry, Your Excellency. In a manly way here. It's almost unbelievable this is your first experience in the Supreme Court. It was an excellent performance. In truth, it was very much reminded me of your cousin's exploits. Oh, Runosuke, you mean? The way you handled the trial 9 months ago, and the way you handled this one, gives me hope we are genuinely entering a new era of justice in this land. That's very flattering, Your Excellency. Hearing the defense you put forward today made me feel most keenly that the future of our justice system will be forged by you and your contemporaries. Thank you. So, Prosecutor Ouchi, do you have any final thoughts? That's not good. That's a knife that you used to commit seppuku. Dude, really? We already had enough of the guy from the 5th trial in the last game. Prosecutor Ouchi! I, Takatsuchi of the Ouchi clan, have been bested by a callow youth not once now, but twice. If there was any shred of my former self left, it is withered and died here today. Gosh, your journey to cultural enlightenment sure took a while, didn't it? Silence! Rather than living on in shame. I will end it all now with this blade. Dude? No, that's not the way. But that is the true path to Ouchiism. Ouchiism? One hopes that the only way in which he'll be modeling himself after the witness. Sprig of my topknot. The time is right for farewell. Hope is lost forever. Takatsuchi. Oh. Okay then. It's not nearly as funny as with the other guy in Trials and Tribulations. Remambani-san. Yes, Your Excellency? I have reached my final verdict. I hereby find you not guilty. There go the cherry blossoms. Court is adjourned. It's over. My heart is still pounding in my chest, though. It's all I can do to stay standing. Lawyers have such great responsibility, such a great burden to bear. Don't they, Naruhodo-san? Susato! Susato! Thank you. You were so dashing in there. And Father, honestly, I'm so touched by everything you've... Oh no, I think I'm gonna cry. It wasn't easy, but together we made it. The only reason I'm still here is because of you. I can't take all the credit. It took all courage to tell the truth in there. You did wonderfully, Ray. So I would have to say that the congratulations belong to you. We're friends, equals, the trial's over, so no more of this formal super humility response. It's time to celebrate with swagger, to throw caution to the wind. Caution to the... what? I'm the great defense lawyer, Ryotaro Naruhodo. I'll be taking you out to a milk bar tomorrow. Or something. Right, I see. Think about it, Ray. At any rate, we really knocked the wind out of that bored man. And it felt so good. Isn't there anybody else we could throw together? I hope you're not looking at me, Ray. Oh my goodness. No, of course not. Of course not! There it is at last. Ray's lovely smile. You fought for your friend to the very last. As your father, I'm extremely proud of you. Defense attorney Ryotaro Naruhodo. Alrighty, we're done with that. It's back to Susato Mikotoba now. So I'll never see him again then. What a terrible shame. What? What is happening? Sosuke-san and Inspector Hosonaga, I hope you've been keeping well. Is that really you? Yep, I had to change my appearance for, well, obvious reasons, I hope. It's me, Susato Mikotoba. I don't. So dashing, so divine. Get that cough taken care of. No! Doubly dashing, yes, and dashing devilishly divine. Just look at you. I'd no idea, Miss Susato-san Esquires, that you were a locum student Naruhodo-san Esquire's cousin. Astounding ace attorney! Poor Sosuke-san, so confused. I still remember the first time I ever met him. He was in a prison cell in London. What extraordinary conundrum it was that the unwitting student from Japan found himself embroiled in. But after Naruhodo-san's skillful defense at the Old Bailey, he was free to return from Japan to Japan. And now he seems to have earned himself great fame as an author. Probably one of the most well-regarded Japanese authors out there. Second to, I'm blanking on her name. Oh yeah, Murasaki Shikibu. I'm stunned. That's a truly impressive disguise. Even I had no idea, and I'm a chief inspector at the police bureau. Who came up with Mr. Turtle, no less? I'm not sure you should be admitting to that, Inspector. Amazing, you're a woman of many faces, I see. Just two, really. And this was a once-in-a-lifetime event, I hope. Oh, I'm not a patch on you, though. Well, I'm a professional, of course. I do worry about Inspector Hosonaga sometimes. I really do. Get that tuberculosis taken care of. He was undercover disguised as the head waiter of a restaurant. And got the shit kicked out of him on the steamship to Great Britain. From my perspective, I have to admit that I have mixed feelings about all this. I mean, now the truth has been lost forever. What do you mean? I'm talking about the murder that the Englishwoman committed at the end of last year. It was an English doctor she killed, as I understand it. Dr. John H. Wilson, yes. A man I invited to Japan personally. The mystery is, why did she kill him? And now that the culprit herself is dead, we'll probably never know the answer. I wouldn't be so sure. On the voyage to Great Britain, we had a most unexpected encounter. With Mr. Herlock Sholmes, the great detective, I mean. Yes, I remember Mr. Sholmes well, of course. Oh, my arch nemesis. How lightly you utter his name. Well, according to the stories published about him in the Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, the detective once had a partner who helped him solve crimes, a best friend. And that man was an exceptional doctor of medicine by the name of John H. Wilson. What? Dr. Wilson? I just can't believe that it's a coincidence. That the English doctor of medicine killed here in Japan 9 months ago must have been the friend and partner of Mr. Sholmes. You know something, don't you? And if that's really true, then the poor girl won't ever see her beloved father again. As you know, I traveled to Great Britain once myself to study. It was around the time you were born. Grandmother told me about it. On returning to Japan, I took up my professorship at the Imperial Yume University, but I also served another role, as an advisor to the government on diplomatic affairs. I was aware of that as well. In that case, I'm sure you understand. There are some confidential matters I cannot divulge to you. Could you just tell me one thing? Why did you summon me back to Japan? It's been 2 months now since I returned. When I left England, it was because an urgent telegram had arrived from Japan. It said you'd collapsed with a high fever and you were growing weaker by the day. What? Where did that news come from? That's what I'd like to know, because after that long sea voyage I found you in fine health, Father. Was there something in Great Britain you perceived might inconvenience me in some way, or harm me? That's really the only explanation I can think of. You're covering something up! Dear me, do you reserve your most cutting glares for your father, Susato? I'm sorry, my dear. I can't. Ah! Let me go! Ah! Oh, it's you. One throw wasn't enough for you. I got one last thing to say before they take me away. Professor! Me? I know the truth. I know you had a hand in what went on. In that visiting student's fate. Giselle Brett, you mean? No, not her. The student of law who left for Great Britain 8 months ago. You must mean Kazuma-sama. What are you talking about? What does any of this have to do with Kazuma-sama? Nobody here in Japan knows anything about it. They don't know the guy never made it to England. He died on that steamship. And that he'll never... Ah! Well, I didn't expect to find him in there. How high does this go up? What were you officers playing at? Terribly sorry, Your Excellency. I was coming to tell you that the rickshaw has arrived, Eugen, and it's a good job I came by. Thank you for dealing with it, and I'll be there shortly. Your Excellency... The trial's over. I'm not your excellency anymore. Merely your father's friend. Seishiro Jigoku. And may I say that since I saw you last, you seem to have taken a more dashing appearance. Susato. Did you know all along from the start of the trial? A judge sees everything, Susato. I couldn't let you take the risk. If Seishiro here hadn't known that he'd recognized you, so I had a word in his ear beforehand, as an old friend. So, Seishiro, shall we? Yes, having ruled on that case, we now have various diplomatic issues to address. Before you go, Father... Sorry, my dear, we'll have to return to our early conversation at a later date. Well done again, both of you. You did admirably. What did you think of my Seishiro sling, eh? It's been a while since I sent a man flying like that. Whatever could Father be hiding from me? About Giselle Brett, about Dr. Wilson, and now it seems, according to the reporter, about Kazuma-sama. I'm gonna have to bring this up with Father sometime. When nobody else is around. Judicial Assistant Mikatoba-san Esquires, could I, have a word? What is it? I think perhaps it could be fate that we're meeting again like this now. You see, there's something I need to tell you. Oh? I believe that it may be related to the reason why your father summoned you back from England. This I have to hear. Please, Sosuke-san, tell me at once. I will! I will! As you know, my time in England was terrible. Cursed, I've no doubt. Such awful things I was embroiled in. Thank goodness locum student Naruhodo-san Esquire stepped in. After he secured my freedom, I couldn't wait to get on a ship back here to my homeland. Having arrived in Japan, I submitted a report about my experiences to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The next thing I knew, I had a visitor. It was your father, Professor Mikatoba. He wanted to ask me all sorts of things about my report. My father? He seemed to be especially taken with a particular part of the report. Anyway, he left eventually, having thoroughly quizzed me. But it was the very next day that he sent a telegram to you asking you to return to Japan. What was it then? The particular part my father was interested in? I don't really know exactly. But do you remember them? Those two terrible cases I was caught up in. Of course, I could never forget. Your father seemed to concern himself mainly with the second case. The second one? You mean the one Mr. Sholmes forbade any of us to talk about in public? Which is why the only case involving you that any member of the public is aware of is the first. Well, I don't care. I don't have to listen to what that dastardly detective says. Anyway, the point is, it seems that case somehow holds the key to all these curious unanswered questions. That horrific, hideous, heinous case. The case of the haunted lodgings. That case somehow caused my father to summon me urgently back from Japan. I thought that the whole business was over, but it seems I was wrong. It seems it's only the start. Perhaps the story is not yet told. Oh no, it's just the beginning.
So, the mystery of that English woman's death is solved, thank goodness. And having stood in the Supreme Court now, I think I can comprehend a little better how you must be feeling as you fight for people's freedom in a foreign land, Naruhodo-san. But actually, I'm writing to you today because of another matter. I met Soseki-san and we talked about that second case he was involved in. Father has said nothing to me, but I feel certain of it. That case holds the key to some great unsolved mystery. My notes on the case should still be in the office, tucked away at the back of the shelves on the left. Perhaps you might like to look over them again. Today, for the first time this year, it feels as though summer has arrived. The sky is a brilliant blue. It makes me long to see you again. Yours, Susata.
End. Alrighty, there's our first case down. We'll save that up, and I'll see you guys next time when we get to our next case.